New videos every day.
Well, you guys have done a great job of giving us some food for discussion and thought and filling in some of the blanks of the stress stack. And what exactly is that? Well, it's a model to help people better understand the factors that impact their body's individual stress response mechanism and how those factors can drive what ultimately becomes ill health. And there are 6 of those factors. The first, which you all filled in quite nicely, is dietary influences. These are the foods and beverages that directly cause a stress response. And we got almost all of the usual suspects up there, don't we? Caffeine, a direct stimulator of the adrenal glands. You drink a cup of coffee, a soda, anything that has caffeine, and yes, I'm sorry to say, for those of you chocoholics out there, that also includes chocolate, and it literally puts your body in a state like you're back in prehistoric North America being chased by a saber-toothed tiger down a forest trail. Same thing with sugar and fast food, although the physiological response is a little bit more indirect. The practical result is the same. We've all heard of the sugar high. Your blood sugar goes up like a rocket. You feel great for a little while, but guess what? Just like a rocket, it's got to come back down again. One that's missing there is artificial sweeteners. Aspartame, a neurotoxin, a poison to the body. When it breaks down in the system, it turns into phenylalanine, aspartate, and methanol. That's wood alcohol for those of you who aren't familiar with it. That's what blinds the bums on Skid Row. Once again, a stressor. The second thing, lifestyle influences. And you all did a great job of filling that in. The workplace, multitasking, being overwhelmed, time constraints, the fact that you have to be up and alert and with it 24/7. Traffic, driving to and from every day in that traffic is a stressor. And the conflict in time management between the demands of family and the demands of the workplace. They all are stressors. The third factor is called the cognitive filter. Those of you who are practitioners may be familiar with the work of the British osteopath Leon Chaitow. He wrote a book on the holistic treatment of fibromyalgia, and in that book he presented a model called the life grid. And the model was originally designed to describe the influences on a person's perception of how they handle the disease of fibromyalgia. But in a broader sense, you can apply this with some modification to how you deal with stress. And briefly, the model looks at the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual inputs, both self-induced and externally induced, that create your prism through which you view the world, and therefore how you view stress. And there's a large number of those inputs. Things like, for example, your own perception of your physical limitations, the limitations of your muscular and skeletal systems. Things like the impact of significant events from your prior life experience. And what those do is they create what I like to call ruts in the road, ways that you have designed or through your own experience to help you cope with the various stressors in your life. The other thing that nobody mentioned that I think is very important is what I call the nutritional gap. And the nutritional gap is basically the difference between what your body gets in the way of nutrition and what it really needs. There's a very famous statement that most of the medical community uses. I call it a medical urban legend that says, if you eat a balanced diet, you don't need to take vitamins. Well, when you look past the surface of that statement, you realize that it's not factually correct for three very important reasons. Number one, when you look at the survey data that has been presented from across the United States, less than 6% of people actually eat a balanced diet as it's defined by the government. Secondly, we all have food preferences. And some of the food preferences that some of the major media and political figures have presented to us are quite well known. For example, the senior President Bush is famous for his statement about all the reasons why he doesn't like broccoli and refuses to eat it. Well, to the extent that you indulge yourself in those food preferences, guess what? You're not eating a balanced diet. And the third reason actually comes from the research data that's been produced by the Department of Agriculture. Back in the end of 2005, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published a study that depicted the change in nutrient value of our produce supply over the last half century. What they found was quite astounding. Depending upon which type of produce you're looking at and which nutrient you're looking at in that produce, the value of our food supply, nutritionally speaking, has declined between 6 and 38% over a half a century. Now, obviously, with an obesity rate in this country in excess of 60%, the solution is not to eat between 6 and 38% more of that food. So for all of those reasons, we need to fill that gap somehow. And I'll talk about how we'll do that in just a moment. Another issue that we haven't talked about is what I call the trigger factor. And the trigger factor is simply the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm sure all of you are familiar with either family members, friends, or acquaintances who, when they experience a traumatic incident in their lives, say the death of a spouse or a child, the loss of a job, perhaps even an automobile accident, that is the event that starts their long, slow, inevitable cascade into ill health. Well, the reason that they do that is that up until that point in time, they have been carrying such a high stress load that trigger factor pushes them over the edge. And that edge is what I call the catabolic threshold. Catabolic is a 25-cent scientific word that means destructive. And when your body crosses that catabolic threshold, when these stress factors become so large that your body starts to exhibit destructive processes within it. The last factor, and you guys did a great job of depicting it, I couldn't have said it any better myself, are toxic influences. Those toxic factors in our society which impact our health and create an increased stress response. Big pharma, prescription and over-the-counter drugs. Radiation, we've talked about that, and it can be either naturally occurring radiation or it can be radiation that is imposed on us by, for example, computer systems, medical diagnostic equipment. An interesting statistic is that according to a leading viroimmunologist, the average radiation dose that a passenger experiences on a cross-country flight is equivalent to that of a chest x-ray. Well, if you're a corporate employee and you travel a lot, multiply that by hundreds of times a year. And if you're an airline employee, like one of our guests today, thousands of times over their career. Think about the stressor that is to their bodies. Chemicals. We all know that there's lots of chemicals in our society today, and yes, they do provide us with great benefit, but we're dealing with a load that, according to the EPA, exceeds 500,000 synthetic chemicals in our society, and that number is increasing at the rate of over 5,000 per year. When we're exposed to those chemicals, which are synthetic and are not meant to interface with our system, guess what? It's a stressor. And of course, the naturally occurring stressors of pollens, dander, you may have cat hair allergies, dog hair allergies, anything like that. Well, we've looked at this laundry list, and it's quite long and extensive, but we've really only scratched the surface of it. That's our stress stack. And what are some of the characteristics of that stress stack? Well, first of all, it's unique. Everybody has a unique stress stack. Every one of these factors is of a different size. Secondly, it's dynamic. It changes from day to day depending upon what you're exposed to. And so those are really the primary factors that we need to be aware of. Okay, we've talked about all of this somewhat dire information. Let's go to where the rubber meets the road. How do we address this? Okay, well, first of all, dietary influences. Any ideas about how we address that? Pretty easy. Eliminate them. Absolutely. Absolutely. Eliminate caffeine, sugar, and fast food. And you say, oh yeah, easy for you to say. But guess what? You'll feel so much more healthy. Lifestyle influences. Start taking a look with deliberateness at what your work environment and your work pace is like. And be deliberately aware of everything that you're doing. That's really what it comes down to. Don't be reactive, be proactive. Okay? And that may mean, for example, stop multitasking. Because the data shows you're actually less efficient when you try to multitask than when you try to do things more mindfully. Okay? The cognitive filter. Probably the most important thing to remember about the cognitive filter is that it is very profoundly affected by your spiritual practice, whatever that may be. And I don't mean religion necessarily, but some kind of philosophical framework that allows you to stay grounded in the world. If you can do that, if you have a practice, or you can develop one through some of the tools such as meditation, prayer, yoga, the list goes on. Pick one that's right for you and stick with it. Okay? The nutritional gap. There's lots of things that you can do here. I like the big three. B, C, E, F, A. If you're going to supplement with anything to help support your body's stress response, vitamin B, vitamin C, and essential fatty acids. Why? Vitamin B supports the part of the stress response that's generated by your central nervous system. Vitamin C actually feeds the adrenals. The adrenal tissues have 25 times the vitamin C concentration of any other tissues in the body. Essential fatty acids help your body create the raw material, cholesterol actually, that your body now can transform into the steroid-based hormones that help better support your body's stress response. The trigger factor we'll get to in just a moment. Toxic influences. There's lots of books out there and lots of information about toxic material and its effect on the human body. The best that I have found, and that I recommend to you without reservation, is The Detox Solution. It's a book that's written by a friend of mine, a homeopathic physician by the name of Patricia Fitzgerald. And it really, literally walks you through every aspect of your environment so that you can look at what the toxic influences are, and better yet, how to positively affect that environment so that your toxic burden is less. The last item, the trigger factor. I think it probably occurs to you by now that if the stress load from all of these other 5 factors is now substantially decreased, how likely do you think it's going to be that trigger factor is going to be operative? Probably not much. Yes, you may undergo a trauma, but it's not going to be the trigger that causes serious illness.
For hundreds of great more videos like this one, check out the Psychetruth channel on YouTube.